Yeah, that's kind of crooked. So we're gonna work on the Mustang today, and as you can see, the wheels, they're straight, right? Yep, straight, pulled straight on in here. But our steering wheel, yeah, that's kind of crooked. So we're gonna fix that. We're gonna go over how to do that without messing up the alignment. So first things first, let's lift up the front end. Next thing, I like to do this with a 15/16 socket and a nice little adjustable wrench. I untighten this. Let me tell you what common practice is for doing this. Well, for the most part, when a technician does your alignment and the steering is getting done, and I'm not saying it was any technician's fault. What I'm saying is, to fix it, they basically adjust your tie rods until it gets close. Now, when they are adjusting your toe, they'll adjust your tie rod ends, and they can get close that way. Now, for me, I just have to have one of those of the 9 bolts pointed upward, because then, if it's just pointed upward, all I got to do is as simple as unbolt it with Allen keys and then bolt it right back up in the right orientation. Now, in the event, you know, say the steering gets set and the toe is set, but it's not just right like it is right now, that's where you bring us to the situation right now where we gotta unbolt the rack and basically disconnect and just align the splines just right. I'll show you. So you see this U-joint right here? That's the U-joint that goes to the steering. Well, that guy is splined. Now what we could do is, and what we're going to do is, we're going to unbolt it from the steering rack column. We're going to move the rack forward, keeping this linkage connected to the steering, you know, this link connected to the steering rack, but disconnect it here. Then we'll go inside of here. We're going to rotate that guy in the correct position. Slip that guy back on, and when that's back on, that's lined up, we'll put everything back together so that it's all nice and tight. Our steering wheel will be pointed forward, and our steering will be bolted back up to the car. And that's basically how we're going to do this little alignment. Now, I cannot do it from this side of the steering rack because that's actually keyed a certain way. So there's no changing how that's bolted here, but we can change how it bolts right here. So there's only so much room in this engine bay for you to see and me to unbolt that. Well, I can tell you, I do have my little 1/2" socket right here. I'm gonna try to get onto the side, and then once that's done, there's an Allen key that I have to take off. Lock nut. Alright, so theoretically, how this is going to work is I can pull this forward, and that will disconnect that steering shaft. So by pulling that, it popped it right on off. Oh, yeah. forgot about this part. So since it's popped off, all we gotta do is just say, yep, straight. And this is what I was talking about. As long as I have one of these bolts to the very top, you can basically unbolt the steering wheel, turn it which way, bolt it back. Alright. I kind of touched the headers, it's really not that hot. So, alright. Now, we need to put here. You know what? We're going to turn the wheel. Point it upward. And then, got your set screw. Aha. Perfect. So that's all in place. Let's go bolt this, because that's not going to go anywhere. So let's go ahead and bolt the steering rack back up to the car. Get that all nice and snug up, and then we'll finish by tightening this, and that'll basically put the steering back together nice and tight, and it won't come off. If that order kind of confused you a bit, the reasoning why we kind of had it spline and we put a set screw so that it's not going to go anywhere while we're under here, and then this is kind of like one of the bigger parts to getting this back together. So if this is back together, that steering shaft definitely won't come off, because I made that steering shaft where the only way it comes off is if this is unbolted. Alright. Set screw is tight, but don't forget the locking nut. Alright, so before we drop this thing back on the ground, wheel is straight. You know, at least to the eyeballs, that's straight. We'll find out for sure when we go to cruise. And steering wheel is oriented in the correct position. Alright, and then before we put away all the tools, we took apart only the one bolt on the U-joint. That required this Allen key. We tightened it down. We tightened the lock nut down with this. And you guys saw me tighten these two guys down nice and tight. So I believe we are complete. Nut and bolts are all tight. So let's drop this thing back on the ground. She rolled straight, I'll tell you that. Whew. This is how we reorient the steering wheel without messing with the wheel alignment, because typically the thing, you know, that kind of thing is taken care of at the alignment, where they can make adjustments to the tie rods that kind of fine tune where the orientation of the steering wheel goes. But for us, it's not that hard of a task. We just gotta lift it up, unbolt one of the linkages in the steering rack, change where it needs to go, put it all back together. As you can see, real quick video. Break-in miles, we're working on break-in miles for the McLeod clutch. So no racing yet, okay, doctor's orders, McLeod's orders. So we're going to stick to it. Let's see, how many miles do we have? So we're at 22,950. No, that's not the actual miles of the car. It's way more than that. It's just a new gauge cluster. Anyways, we need to be at 23,300 miles. So that's when we've got all our break-in miles in on the clutch and we can get back to racing. I have terrible self-control when it comes to this car, and yeah, I've laid into it a time or two, but not for a long extended period of time, such as like racing. So we're not doing that. We so no racing. That's all I gotta say. No racing, unfortunately, not yet, not yet. But every day we're putting on miles. We got over 100, almost. You know, we're close. You know, almost 200 miles in this break-in. We gotta get to 500. That's what we're getting to, and we will get back to racing. I know this Saturday they have one of the spectator races. So hey, tomorrow, if I can just jump in the car and just get to cruising, get some miles going, get that clutch actuated, because it's not just, you know, jump in and just drive for 500 miles and come back home. You have to have a lot of clutch actuation, because that's what's kind of breaking in. And I can feel it from day one to current that, yeah, it feels a whole lot smoother. It definitely feels a whole lot smoother. So it's doing its job. The braking is working. So I can't say that it's wasted for me to just, yeah, you know, like, fuck it, I'll just go drive or not even make the 500 miles. So I think it's important because it's doing something. So there's some sort of chemistry happening there. Anyways, like, comment down below. Let me know if this is what you guys want to see. Pretty soon we're going to get into driving. Pretty soon we're going to go to the car shows. And pretty soon we're going to get back into racing. And if it's your first time here, I want you to think about subscribing. And I will see you guys later.